Chapter 7. The Two Doors. As a matter of record, there were those in Twin Forks who were not regularly in Sunday service. Among them were 4 Ashers, 2 Noons, and at least 1 Templeton. They would, however, this sunrise, each in their own way, meet their God-spilled fate. Due to the recent presence of the unexpected, untidy, and uncontrollable Noons escorting public sway, Justice Hodgkins had not made good on his threat to bring young William again to court. Already, small mercies had begun to sprinkle from the harsh heavens. Nonetheless, sprinkles do not a flood make. There was not yet achieved a paradise upon the green, untutored earth. In means unseen and crooked smile, the fiddler's bow dispenses trial. William was adorned in his Sunday best. The clothes had not seen daylight for some weeks, and they seemed to happily breathe again in the fresh air when he released and unfolded them from his bottom dresser drawer. He even pasted down his cowlick with some gluing potion from his father's arsenal. With the flowers tucked in some brown paper wrapping that had most recently arrived surrounding a parcel, William was on his merry way. He knew Leah would be home, though she knew nothing of her impending suitor. Worlds would either clash or coalesce to an unseen script. Will did not want to risk blemishing his current cleanliness, and decided to take the bridge rather than the skiff. The river would not guide him this day. It was cooler than usual that morning, and hoarfrost had lighted on the surface of Will's world. Such was his mood that, to him, it looked more of sweet icing than ice. Elsewhere, deep in the forest, a hairy man had most recently emerged from his life's enclosure and could no longer endure his retreat. He too would come home to what might roost. The air sparkled, and the trees glinted in the sharp coolness. Leaves crunched underfoot, and the way was less formidable than expected. All these years he had dreaded the thought of return. Now, in consummation of it, on the untrod path, there arose no opposition. He stopped beside a bramble bush bereft of leaves, where, beneath the mass, down through the system of sticks and stones, could be seen a distinct hole in the ground. It appeared to have been recently dug, and left like a gaping wound in the earth, the mark of a grave robber. William Clayton scratched the surface with the blunt tip of his walking stick, and took note of the image. He continued on his appointed route. Further ahead, a good stone's throw from the cabin, was another hole, perhaps 8 inches in diameter. It, like the other, was not particularly large, but nonetheless noticeable and uniquely out of place. As he approached the clearing of the cottage, in the process of being reclaimed by nature's fury, the younger Noons was not prepared for what he would see. Littered around the perimeter of the cabin, as if the site of some Egyptian dig, were scores of holes. He ran to the door and did not knock. Across the river, in the lightest portion of the dark side, a young calloused hand tapped on the surface of a solid, red-covered front door. The rapping was lightly proposed, and he could hear it more than anyone else, but it felt deafening all the same. He took a breath and again plunged into the deep, murky waves of love's motionless churn. This time the knock was heard. The door opened, and young William lifted his eyes to look directly into those of his intended dream. "Oh, hello, William," she said, and turned as if to leave. "I'll get Geoffrey." "No," he managed to blurt out. "No, Miss Leah. These are for you." He extended the homemade package of flowers. "If you please, I've come to see you." "Oh," was all she said, stepping from the doorway onto the porch, proving her substance in the material realm. 2 more words freely left her lips. "I see." She left the front door open a crack and motioned toward the front porch swing, not yet taking the package. The visage spoke. "Won't you sit down, William?" They sat, and the flowers were placed between them. "So, you've come to see me," she reiterated, as more of a statement than a question. "Why, thank you, William. I'm flattered, of course, but why would you ever want to see me?" She spoke as if not comprehending, or wanting to. "Surely you don't need to bring me a thing." Leah Asher was polite and gracious in that distant, well-mannered way, and the pain was too much for the boy. Finally he spoke. "Miss Leah, I know you're older than me and probably smarter, and, well, just a lot more of things than me, but I think you're a special girl, and I've come to court you." A gaping conversational hole began to surface, and a breeze entered, unlike those of the porch steps at Will's home that would come with sweet tobacco and pies. It rattled the paper of the as yet untouched flowers. Never leaving composure, the beautiful but unsoft young woman revealed, if nothing else, her footing. "Well, William, as I told you before, we are so grateful to you for what you've done for Geoffrey and to our family, but I could never actually court you. You could only ever be a friend, but I have all the friends I need." It was then that time seemed to somehow slow down for Will, and it was as if he were both in a dream and watching it pass before him. "You are not she edited herself as she explained the rules. "You and your family are not from the same background as I and, well, us. You and I are from different worlds and obviously have different obligations and expectations." Everything she said was both completely accurate and somehow unsettling to the stomach. She went on to elucidate the importance of tradition, and William could see she had already taken the bait of someone else's hook. As she spoke, he could see her lips moving, and her indisputable beauty, just inches away from him, but he could no longer hear her. He could hear the Reverend Shell, and Magistrate Hodgkins, and Marm Steckley, and all the clicking tongues of the town and the bank and the same world he had left. It was then he realized that people are never actually judged for having a different appearance or background, but through the background of the one in judgment. Leah was right. They could never court. Whether of Zara or Pharez Judah, or neither, she was fully born to the idea of such an exclusive lineage, and would vehemently cling to it, like a dog on the sleeve of the postman. William, on the other hand, was born to look between the branches to what watches atop them. She finished her speech with, "So, you see, William, that is why, He held up his hand and cut her off in mid-spiel. "That's okay, Miss Leah." He smiled quite sincerely and simply said, "You don't need to say any more. I understand." He lifted the package from its limbo resting place with his other hand and lightly touched hers. Rising to his feet, he backed away from the sequestered scene, with love still in his heart for her luminous, unscorned beauty. She remained seated, just staring at him with the most quizzical look altering her lovely face. As he descended the few steps, he asked her to be sure to say hello to Geoffrey for him. And if she spoke again, he did not know, for he did not see the point in looking back. He could have left her the bundle of flowers, but what the heck. There was a caring woman back home in whose root cellar they would no longer hide. He was still smiling when he crossed that most significant bridge. He could no longer see the town as being divided into the east side or the west side, but rather much the same side either way. Will knew only the outdoors from the indoors, and each had their seasonal merits. Across the Wahani, he made his own way on the rough river's edge to his favorite spot. There it waited, as always. The willow dipped its weathered head to greet him, and he nodded in smiling reply. There he sat and leaned against its trunk. Its sense of constancy against his back felt good. He closed his eyes and lifted his chin to the warm, streaming autumn sun, reaching through to the two of them, he and the tree, on that patch of long grass. The air was crisp and clean, and all the world there felt ready for it. Elsewhere, as the door to that cursed cabin swung open, there lay 3 things on the floorboards, and one of them was not Noon's. The black-eyed man was nowhere in sight. In fact, he was nowhere, and never more again to be seen, to the knowledge of those involved in the forks and the cabin and the woods of Simon's Pass, or at all on the good green earth. The man who could not let go of anything, with neither friend nor foe, had passed silently into the night, as a light fallen snow that melts with the sun of noonday and amounts to little. In his stead was a half-rusted shovel and a mound of small burlap pouches, somewhat rotted and caked with dirt. Each sack was stuffed with a lifetime of coins of various denominations and origins. Atop the savings of many was set a newspaper clipping and a message from the crow confined to the past. Written in pencil, in the margin, very simply and selectively, in large letters, were the words, "I am sorry." Clayton's face softened, and he set down his stick. A Noon's he was, and a Noon's he wasn't. All aglow and all aplumb, and where he's due is where he's from. The money would be returned to the town, where William Clayton would come to live, in the home that would be built for him by a grateful many who, too, were sorry for their part in his exclusion. He would stay in Twin Forks on occasion, when he was not off trapping in the frozen Northland or exploring some long-forgotten island in summer times to come with a young friend. William Templeton opened his eyes and reclined in the spattered light and shade. The golden sun grinned at him. The river sparkled, and, as always, the tree spoke to him. It spoke of forged links, ultimately hardened or melted, of a lost love or a dream of such, a lost friend found, and a new friend earned, and a soul awakening. Most of all, regardless of the town or the people in or out of it, Will knew he had found the truth, or at least some truth worth keeping. He laid his head back and reached into his tunic, to the inside breast pocket, just to touch something he had secretly held back. The cloth was worn to softness, but its scarlet thread remained intact and instilled in the sweet scarlet heart of a boy who would become so much more. A boy now content, 'neath the willows weep and fast asleep.
All right, that's it then. Go to bed.